Am I the asshole for refusing to let my stepdaughter use my daughter's wedding dress? I met my stepdaughter Zoe 2.5 years ago, and I married her father less than 5 months ago. It was a small and private celebration since that's what we felt was the best thing to do, since I'm still grieving my daughter Lauren, who passed away from sepsis at the age of 26. She was doing okay and was getting ready for her wedding that was supposed to happen the same month she passed away. We still don't know what went wrong. I took most of her belongings, including her wedding dress. We bought it together and she put a lot of her own touches on it. Although it hurt to look at it, I made sure it's safe. My stepdaughter Zoe is younger than Lauren. She's 23. We're not very close and distance is one of the reasons why. The issue started when Zoe visited to talk about her wedding in April. We were talking about wedding dresses and she suddenly brought up Lauren's wedding dress. I asked her what about it and she said she saw it several times and it got stuck on her mind. She asked me if she could see it and I let her. She then said she'd like to wear it at her wedding. I felt uneasy. I told her I wasn't sure that was a good idea. She told me it's fine. She'll have to change a few things in it so that it can fit her size and style, but this is why I had a hard time accepting. I told her I was sorry, but I can't let her have it. She offered me money, but its sentimental value is what matters to me. She argued, saying I was making things complicated and it was all right since she too is my daughter. She asked if I don't love her as much as my own daughter, and I told her my love for her is different, but she threw a fit calling me unfair and unreasonable, and I still said no. Her dad got involved in the argument, saying he doesn't see why I'm against it. I declined to discuss it anymore, but they keep bringing it up, asking if my daughter would have wanted someone else to have the opportunity to wear this dress since she unfortunately couldn't. This made me so mad, I lashed out at both of them and kept saying no. Others said I had no right to act like that. What's the point of leaving the dress in the closet when my stepdaughter can make good memories in it? Am I the asshole for not wanting to give her the dress? Would I be the asshole if I called off my wedding because my fiance doesn't want my son to bring his boyfriend to the wedding? My son was born when I was only 15 years old and I've been a single dad since I was 18. It was hard living for a long time money-wise, but I always tried to do my best by my son. Today I own my own gym and my son is now 22 and going to college and works at my gym full-time. He came out to me when he was 14 years old and I've always been supportive of him and his identity. I've been with my fiance for about 2 years and while she does come from a very deep religious and conservative family, she has never had any issue with my son. At least nothing she has ever expressed to me. My son has been dating his boyfriend since he was 18 and I've gotten to know him very well. However, my fiance told me recently that she does not want my son's boyfriend to come to the wedding, nor does she want her parents to even get a hint that my son is gay. That if they found out, they would have a complete fit. This really bothered me because I refused to ask my son to go back in the closet. What is going to happen in the future? What's going to happen when my son gets married himself? Will they want him and his husband barred from other family events? He's my son and will be the best man, and it will be unfair to deny him a +1 because her family has an issue with gay people. When I told her this, she got very angry and told me that I was being selfish and overdramatic, that it would just be for this one day and she wants a perfect wedding. I told her that this was unacceptable and that I was not going to ask my son not to bring his boyfriend. It's my wedding too and I want his boyfriend there. After that, I got the silent treatment for a day and since then it hasn't been discussed again. However, it has left an extremely bad taste in my mouth and has been contemplating calling the wedding off. I do not want to marry into a family that would potentially discriminate against my son. I love my fiance very much, but my son will always come first. I told my brother and he said that I was being the asshole here, that it would just be for one day and that since my son is an adult, it's unlikely that he would have that much interaction with his step-grandparents in the future anyway. I still don't feel comfortable about the entire situation and I'm really thinking about calling this wedding off. Would I be the asshole if I did here?
Storytime about how one best friend saved me from the other. The school I went to was a public school that never cared or paid attention to things that went on unless it was brought up to the school board directly. It was sophomore year of high school and I had class with both my girl and boy best friend. The girl's name is Aspen and the guy's name is Nick. Since our teacher didn't care, all three of us picked our seats together. I sat in the middle between Nick and Aspen. Nick and I had known each other since kindergarten, so I was pretty comfortable with his company. I never thought anything of it when he leaned his head on my shoulder or squished my face with his hands. However, about halfway through the year, things started to take a turn. During class, Nick would put his hands on my thighs or he'd lean on me and wrap his arms around my waist. This started to make me feel uncomfortable. We were seated in the back of the class, so no one noticed him making me uncomfortable except Aspen, who had no idea what was happening because I never alarmed her of it. I didn't say anything because part of me thought I was overreacting. After all, he was my best friend. One day, the class was empty because it was a free day, so we could all just hang out in the classroom or the commons. The teacher was God knows where and Aspen had left to go print something for a different class in the printing room. I was left alone in the back of the classroom with Nick. For a few minutes, things were fine. I knew that Aspen would be back, so I just read my book. Then out of nowhere, I saw Nick stand up and shut the classroom door. Part 2 of how one best friend saved me from the other. I was scared when Nick shut the classroom door, but I tried to ignore him and pretended to keep reading my book. I quickly dialed Aspen's number on my phone and slipped the phone into my pocket. Before long, Nick got impatient with me and ordered me to take off my shirt. I told him no, and that's when he grabbed a fistful of my hair and tried to do it himself. After a minute of struggling with him, Aspen busted through the classroom door with one of our school guidance counselors. Turns out she hadn't really gone to the print room. She had noticed Nick touching me inappropriately and making me uncomfortable the previous day, so she went to the guidance counselor to get help. When I dialed her number, she was trying to convince the counselor, and when she realized what was happening, she put the phone on speaker to prove that I was in an unsafe situation. The counselor took Nick away, and later I found out that 7 other girls had come forward about him. They all said that he was harassing them, but since the school had no evidence, they couldn't expel him before. However, since the school counselor heard what was going on when Aspen put the phone on speaker during his attack on me, they were able to finally expel him. I'll always be thankful to Aspen for trying to help me when I felt like I couldn't do anything. Storytime about the ghost that follows me. When I was in my teens, my cousin and best friend made a Ouija board. I was skeptical whether it worked or not, but agreed to try it out with her. We get everything set up and my cousin starts asking the board questions. It starts answering and saying weird things that my cousin didn't even know about my life. Some of my deepest and darkest secrets were coming out of that thing. I started to panic and I told my cousin that I wanted to stop. We said our goodbyes and closed it up. I thought that was the end of it, but that night, we started hearing footsteps in her room. This was something that neither of us had experienced in that room ever. When I went home, the footsteps followed me and continued to happen in my childhood home. When I told my parents, my dad chalked it up to the floor settling after we laid new flooring in the previous years. Then we moved into a new home that had been converted from a garage to a business to a home of my family. I mention this because 1, no one had clearly ever lived there, and 2, the floors under the carpet and laminate were cement. However, the laminate would still creak as if a full-grown adult was walking on it. Shortly after, I moved into my ex's apartment and same thing. The footsteps again, but this time, shadows started appearing. It had gotten so bad that my best friend and roommate, who's a major skeptic, didn't want to be there alone. I didn't think it could get any worse, but it did. Part 2 of the ghost that follows me. I eventually moved out of the apartment. I moved in with my mother and sister in a different city. Her duplex went from no paranormal activity to an insane amount in just a few days. They would feel hot breaths on their face at night when they slept. My aunt started hearing giggling in a different room when she was alone, and I even heard someone say in an eerie tone, "Mommy," at 3 a.m. once. However, the craziest part is that the duplex mysteriously caught fire. When the fire department came and did their investigation, they had no explanation as to how the fire started or what caused it. After that, we moved into a new modular home who only had one previous owner. The footsteps started again. I found a pretty doll at an antique store, and eventually the doll started to move around on its own. There were times I caught it wave at me or move its head. It got to the point that I had to hide it away because it moved so much and it scared me so badly. I recently moved into an apartment in my hometown and the footsteps are here now. Things keep getting moved around too. I'm seeing the shadows again and it feels like I'll never be free of this thing. I don't know what to do, but I'm scared and terrified it'll always follow me.
Story time to when I found out my sugar daddy and my best friend were sleeping together. So my sugar daddy would always give me money and would take me out shopping. And I obviously would share this with my 2 best friends. He would also take me to visit different cities with him, and I would take them as well. And sometimes I would just go alone with him. Anytime I didn't take my 2 best friends, there would always be one that would get mad. I really didn't understand why. She would always ask me why I didn't take them. One day I had her phone and I found out that he was texting her. So I asked her why she had his number. She told me that he gave her his number just in case he couldn't reach me, which was pretty awkward because I would always have my phone. One day, my sugar daddy and I were supposed to go out of the city, and I was calling and texting him and he wouldn't answer. So I went to hang out with my 2 friends. But that same girl that had his number wasn't home. Follow for part 2. Part 2 on how I found out my sugar daddy and my best friend were sleeping together. Let's name my sugar daddy Tom. Let's name my friend that was texting my sugar daddy Maria, and my other friend Linda. Linda and I were text messaging Maria to see where she was. She wouldn't answer our calls or our text messages. Linda said, "What if Maria and Tom are together?" Because she knew I found out that they were texting. I didn't pay much attention to that and just went on with my day. Later that night, I was going to sleep over my friend's house, so we were walking from my house to her house. From Linda's house, we could see Maria's house, and we saw my sugar daddy's car parked outside her house. Then we saw her getting out of the car and going in her house. Next day, we asked her where she was, and she said that she was with some friends. So since she lied to us, we confronted her. She denied the whole thing, said that we were crazy, even though we saw her. Follow for part 3. Part 3. After that day, she wouldn't hang out with us anymore. A few weeks go by, and I'm texting and calling my sugar daddy, and he won't answer. So I called him from a private number. And when he answered, I asked him what was going on. He said, "I know everything." I asked him about what. He said that Maria told him that I was talking to someone and that I was sleeping with someone else. But I didn't really care, so we just stopped talking. Then I found out he got her a condo, and they moved in together. One day, I received a call from him saying that he misses me and that he wants to get back with me. And I obviously said no. And about a year after that, he was bankrupt, lost all his money, didn't have where to live, and had to move into her mom's house with her. Karma's a bitch.